Well, hello everyone. It is another Friday. It's the last Friday in November. The next time we'll be here, it'll be December. It'll soon be Christmas. But what it is right now is Thanksgiving. So before we do anything else, I want to wish all our American friends, viewers, supporters, lovers, relations, whatever, a happy Thanksgiving for yesterday. And I hope you're enjoying today, which of course is commonly known as Black Friday these days. There'll be very little Black Friday talk. We're not going to do any of that. Oh, go and get a deal here, go and get a deal. You've probably been inundated, as I have, in your inbox with email after email after email saying, money off this. However, the one Black Friday thing I will mention is we have 15% off of our merchandise store through Monday. 15% off everything. So go over to our merchandise store, which I will show you later. But that's the only Black Friday thing that we'll talk about. So where do we start? Well, we'll start by saying hello to everyone that's in the chat. Thanks for joining. We've got a number of YouTube channel members. You can notice them because they've got a little thing after their name, such as Keith in Watford and Ixorb and Justin Have You, who has his own range of T-shirts in the merchandise store. Kissing the Machine is there. We'll be hearing more from him later on. Guess where we'll be hearing him from? Viral Beats is there. And welcome to anyone who has joined us for the first time ever. Where have you been? But we're glad you're here. And stay for some amazing chat with our special guests this week. And we will introduce those shortly. Before we do any of that, let's go through the housekeeping stuff. Get it out of the way. It's boring, I know, but it's good to do. Give us a like if you can during the show. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up during the show. Apparently, it tickles the algorithm a little harder than it does after the show, and it helps us get into other people's feeds. So if you could do that, that would be fantastic. If you want to comment during the show, you can do so through the YouTube chat, through the Twitch chat, and through the Facebook chat. If you're watching the video on any of those platforms, your comments will come through, and if you precede them with a big capital Q, that just makes sure that we can identify them as questions to put to whoever they are directed to. So yeah, give us a like, give us a comment, and if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. We've had a little run of subscribers since last week's excellent show with Anthony Marinelli. More on him as well a little bit later on. So make sure you do give us a subscribe to make sure that you get notified of all the videos when they're coming on. You get the 30-minute warning before we go live. And if you know somebody who doesn't watch the show and you think they might enjoy it, then please do share the link around. That would be fantastic. Indeed. We have merchandise as well, which I'll talk about in a moment. You can also support the channel through Patreon. If you want to subscribe, again, it's just a minimum $2. You get loads of free content, special videos. There's Andy's videos with the Mini Moog that was given away by the Bob Moog Foundation recently. There's James Dyson videos and demonstrations of his Cherry Audio products. There's even Cherry Audio presets in there from James Dyson that he's given us to give away for free. There's Mark Barnes presets in there for things, hardware synths. We've got patches for the Hydra synth and the Cobalt 8 from Modal. JDXI, I think, is in there as well. You've got loads of stuff, and you get all of that if you subscribe for a minimum $2. But you don't have to. It's completely entirely up to you. But anything that we make through those channels keeps the show on there, and it pays for all the costs and the fees. Another way, of course, you can support us is through YouTube. You can become a YouTube channel member. Again, it's just a minimum $2 a month, and you get the same stuff. You get all the free videos and free content. That'll all get sent to you. And, of course, during the show, you can use Super Chat or Super Stickers. Or if you're watching afterwards, you can use the thanks button. So it's entirely up to you. If you want to help us, we're super, super grateful. And if you don't or can't, that's fine. It's not a problem. It's not a demand. This show is completely free of charge for everyone there. I did mention the merchandise, so let's just get it out of the way because it needs to be done. So we've started a merchandise site. It's live now. Here it is. The link is in the description underneath the video. And we've got loads of goodies in there, but you need to get in quick if you want to get these things before Christmas. And, of course, there is this Black Friday 15% off everything that is live, went live yesterday, and will run through to the end of Monday. And that'll probably be the end of Monday our time.
We've got the zip-up hoodie in there.
We have. Somebody asked us if we could do a zip-up hoodie last week in the show, and lo and behold, here it is. It's available in a range of colours. You can have black, you can have charcoal heather, you can have navy or green. Anything from size small to 2XL, and that is about 42 quid, but it's a very nice thing, so I'm told. So that's available. We've got the brand new desk mat with the big logo in the middle. That's available too. Somebody's ordered one of those. We've got the cartoon mugs. We've got the cartoon T-shirts, which a lot of people are liking those. And actually, I'll show this to you guys now. Look, somebody bought one of these things, the insulated tumbler, and they took a picture of it. But you got to find it. Can you find it? There it is, next to the laptop, on top of the rack. Just a little thing. But I'm admiring the studio. That's a nice little room. This is Pete DeLong, and he bought one of these mugs and placed it far, far away so that we could get the whole studio shot there. But that's a really nice room. That's a really, really nice room.
And it does complete his studio.
And it does make it makes everything sound better.
It makes it all sound better. Acoustic treatment. Yep.
There you go. We also had some photos from our friend over in Ireland. He's originally from France, and we bought some of his T-shirts, and he has returned the favour. This is BG Ollie. I need to issue a warning here. Okay, so the warning is, if you've got any ladies in the room, you might want to move them out, because as soon as I put this picture up, they might get pregnant. Okay, it's that hot. Okay, here we go. This is Ollie wearing his T-shirt and nothing else apart from a bodrum, or as we know it, the cheeseburger that sits on his studio wall. He also decided to play his banjo in the T-shirt and then drink a cup of tea or coffee. That's proper shirt cocking right there. Thank you, Ollie, for not only the biggest laugh of the week when he sent those through. That was fantastic. So if you have pictures of your merchandise, please do send them in. We'll feature them on the show. And coming up a little bit later, we've got the first video of somebody with merchandise, which is a first. Anyway, there we go. That's how you can support the channel, both financially or out in public, spreading the name. And the links are all below in the descriptions if you haven't already got sick of me telling you all about them. So that's the merchandise. Shall we get some people on? Kent apparently hasn't turned up yet. He did kind of flicker on in the green room and then disappear again, but he's had some new internet fitted, and I'm just wondering if it didn't go as planned or as well as expected. But anyway, we do have, of course, you've heard him in the background there, we do have Andrew Longhurst. Good evening, sir.
Welcome to the shopping channel.
Yes, how's your new internet? Because that's working now, is it?
Well, yes, it is. It did take, when you have high speed internet fitted, it takes a few days for them to gauge how much you're using it and to get the optimum speed. So it might be what Kent is running into. But yeah, it's working fine. It's working. That doesn't work because I'm shaking. Yeah, but it works really well. It works really well.
Excellent. Busy week?
It's been a mad week, a mad week with lots going on. There might be some good news coming soon. Excellent. I will tell you about it another time. But it's been a good week. At the beginning of the week, I found some time to play with a new instrument that I rather liked. I'll tell you about it later. I'll share it with you later.
Okie dokie.
You know, it's right.
I've just noticed our moderators are in the chat, and I need to give them a big shout out. Especially Andrew Brooks, who has been incredibly missing these last few weeks. Everyone was yesterday. We were talking privately. Has anybody seen Andrew? Is Andrew okay? What's going on? Excellent to see him in the chat. He's one of our moderators, along with Synth Addict, who I think will probably drop in later because it's a little bit morning time, isn't it? And then, of course, Ben from Musings generally drops in. I'm not sure if he's around. But, thank you to our moderators who look after the chat and keep everyone in line. Not that you need it. You're all very good.
And hello, Cherry Robert. Hi, Robert.
Indeed,
how you doing?
Cherry Robert's in there, who is fantastic. I have to sing his praises because he helps me with all of the press releases, gets me the images and access to things. He does a sterling job. Give him a pay rise. I think
James
in
the chat as well, who's done
James
some
Dyson.
lovely presets for something. I don't know what.
It's a proper cherry flavour here, isn't it?
Yeah, there is.
There he goes. Andrew says, "Hi PSN. I've been there every Friday, just not able to do the pub." Well, okay, we'll let you off then. As long as you're well, that's all that, we were worried that you weren't around so much. But good to see you, mate.
He's my favourite. He's my favourite.
So that's all of that. Let's get to our guests. You've seen them before. We've seen them before, but it's brilliant to have them back every time they release something new and excellent. It's Dan Goldstein and Mitchell Sigman from Cherry Audio. And we can give them cheers again. We've got sound effects back.
Nice
we
to
fixed
be
the
back.
sound effects. Yay. Now, you see, look at this. Dan Goldstein is sporting one of the finest T-shirts known to man.
And what a deal.
I know.
What a deal it was.
And there's a cat. It gets even better.
Oh, you can see my
and I'm reciprocating by wearing a Cherry Audio GX80 shirt.
Thank you. That's lovely.
So there we go. Absolutely. So it's all about swapping T-shirts and stuff. Mitchell's got his Voltage modular on. Andy's got his. This is it. So we're all modelling each other's merch.
I've got BG Ollie's underpants on.
Good, because he didn't.
Yeah, I know.
Clearly. Yes, the cat does. Dead Man Walking says the cat needs a PSN collar. If Kent can come on the show, we might be able to show you the official ProSynth Network pet collar. It exists. Yeah. Siri has one. I've just said that, and my phone's gone a bit crazy. So we have dog collars and everything. Not of the religious variety, the pet variety. Anyway, gentlemen, it's great to see you again. You've been busy.
It's been quite a week.
I'll say. You gave me a stat before we came on air, which is remarkable yet unsurprising. What was that stat, Mr. Goldstein?
I guess I was telling you that P10 is Cherry Audio's second most successful release of all time.
And
next
it's
to the GX80, which just blew up like crazy. And after
insane.
all the work that's gone into P10, it's a big relief, and it's very exciting. It's been a long week launching P10 and our Black Friday sale and Synth Stack 5.
Synth Stack 5, of course.
Cooking dinner for lots and lots of people.
Yes. Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
It's amazing that we are awake today.
All of us, I think.
Were you all well fed yesterday?
I hope so. Yes, I was.
Good.
My wife and I cooked for 11 people.
Oh, wow. 11. How was your Thanksgiving, the first one in your new home?
So I had it. My wife and I went to our neighbors next door, who were fine people, and we were I think the only Americans there, which is funny. It's kind of ironic. Amongst Austrians, Germans, South Africans. It's an interesting cross section.
That's a blend and a half.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. And they had my wife and I sing and play songs on acoustic guitar.
Nice.
So that was interesting. It's always weird playing for 10 people. It's a lot more stressful than playing. I don't know why. It's a lot more stressful to play for 10 people than it is to play. I played for 10,000 people, literally. And that's fine. You're yeah, whatever. It's just this big blob of whatever. But when you're you're like, okay, I better not screw up. I'm in a living room. Oh, no.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Cool.
No, couldn't agree more. No, that's cool. Well, I'm glad you had a fantastic Thanksgiving. We just had a regular day here. We worked. It was normal.
Oh, yeah.
But we can all celebrate Black Friday.
Well, there's good Black Friday. Lots of deals to be had, especially in the merchandise store. But let's talk about the thing that we're here to talk about, of course, which is your brand new release. Before we get into that, let's, in case anybody hasn't,
have they got a new release?
They've got a new release, and in case anybody hasn't seen what it is, then let's just play them the little trailer. Now, if somebody told you in 2024 you could have essentially a full, something better than a Prophet 10 for $59, you'd have gone, ha! You'd have gone, ha! No way! But there it is, $59, and you get this P10, which is incredible. There is one sat right behind you. Look at that.
Look at that.
I love the way that whenever we talk about a new Cherry Audio synth, the thing that inspired it is always he positions it, gets it right. We trust him. Okay, so I asked, this is generally the first question. Why the P10? What was the inspiration?
I mean, come on, the Prophet 5 and the Prophet 10 are some of the best synthesizers ever made.
Very true.
And obviously, many companies have attempted to tackle the Prophet 5, but the Prophet 10 is twice as much, layering two Prophet 5 sounds together, and no one has ever thought, let's do that. And it's just the perfect Cherry Audio instrument.
Dan, can I
stand for?
Can I interrupt you right there? Because the Prophet 10 isn't a double. It isn't two Prophet 5s. It's not. It's so much more. It's like 2.5 times that. It really is.
Yeah. Carry on, Dan.
Yeah. The way you can stack the sounds, you can alternate between the sounds, you can share LFOs between the two layers, which is a really, really cool thing. There's definitely a lot more to it, and it is easily the coolest Prophet that was ever made. But somehow it just gets lost in everyone, thinking about the Prophet 5. And to be honest, it's I think for us, for Cherry Audio, it's always been a bit intimidating because everybody loves a Prophet, and there's some really great emulations out there. So if we were going to do it, it had to be perfect. We had to get every little detail correct, and that's not easy to do. There's actually a lot of little quirks to the Prophet, and it required us to go to the schematics and spend a lot of time figuring out why the Prophet behaves the way that it behaves. And I don't mind saying our competitors, they missed a lot of the little quirky behavior of the actual Prophet 5 hardware. And it was really important to us to get everything correct.
Yeah. It's one of those synthesizers, what was it, 1980 that it came out? Was it 80 or 81? I can't remember now. It was random. Anyway.
80, yeah.
Yeah. And it was like, if you're going to make something better, if you've got a really good synth, you want to make a better version of it, you stick another one inside. The DX1 would do it. I need Kent here to verify this, but the CS80 is almost like two CS50s or 60s chucked in the same box. Later on, Roland did the JX10, and there are other, more recently Hydrasynth, just basically puts two Hydrasynth engines into a box. But as Andy says, it's more than just having two instruments in a box. It's the way that those engines can work with each other, the way that you can control them, play them together. I mean, some of the features of the Prophet 10 was this alternating. You could have an arpeggiator alternate between the two engines, have two completely different voices, and that was a pretty unique thing, wasn't it?
Well, the original Prophet doesn't have an arpeggiator.
Yeah,
there is the really complicated, impossible to use sequencer on the Prophet 10, which you could sort of use to do that. Although later, when they added MIDI, there was a factory MIDI kit. Prophets didn't originally have MIDI, but since Dave Smith was instrumental in the development of MIDI, there was a factory MIDI kit that could be added to a Prophet 5 and a Prophet 10. But adding it to a Prophet 10 disabled the sequencer, and nobody cared because the sequencer was impossible to use.
Oh, didn't it also, the Prophet 10, didn't it also come with a backup tape cassette, a micro cassette?
There were two different versions. There's either a micro cassette on the front left, which is what mine has.
Okay.
And I've seen Prophet 10s that have a full-size cassette on the left wood end.
Yeah, that's what I've seen. Yeah.
And I honestly don't know. I've never seen one of those personally, but I do know that the microcassettes are sort of infamous for not working. The drives, the little cassette drives break. Mine spins, and I actually have some of those little tapes, but I have no idea if it works. No idea.
I mean, if we take a look at the original, I've got a picture here. This one I think was taken in Kent's front room, with a lovely sheet behind just to cover up a random dog or Fiona maybe. It's a big thing. I've seen one of these. I've played one of these. They take up a lot of space. They're incredibly heavy as well. And you've got this double manual keyboard. And when you're designing a plugin, one of the things that you can do as a plugin designer is take away the unnecessary pieces of an instrument and make room for other things for you to expand on. But with P10, you've kept the double manual. What was the rationale behind saying, I know you can turn it off, but you've kept the double manual? Was it purely aesthetic, or were there other reasons for that?
Aesthetic. Looks cool. Yeah, I mean, it makes it a P10. It's this hulking, monstrous thing, right? It has to look cool. And what other plugin has you can watch two keyboards going, which I know is, sort of ridiculous. It doesn't affect anything really, but you really get the feeling of it. And we thought, well, as long as you can turn it off, why not? So yeah, plus also there is a slightly practical answer to that, which is the end cheek stuff. If we wanted to have a place for the sequencer and we still needed a spot for the pitch and mod wheel and all that stuff, then, if you didn't want to start really massacring the original design, which, was a little tricky because there's a lot of empty space on a Prophet 10.
Yes.
And had I left all those empty spaces in, people would have been very upset. So the challenge of this design was to utilize those spaces. Obviously, the program select buttons are kind of a non-thing for any sort of modern patch browser. So you have to get rid of those, and then you have more empty space. And so you want to keep it looking and feeling like the real thing. You don't want people to look at it and go, that doesn't look like a Prophet 10. Yeah. So I guess that was a good argument for keeping the keyboards as well, because it kept it feeling and looking like a Prophet 10.
Were there any other were there any other specific design challenges that you came across here? Because I've heard some people, or read somewhere in the last couple of days, people saying, the text is a little small, and I know you have the focus feature, which is really useful, that zooms in. But was that a real struggle to get everything
as clear
as possible?
Yeah, it always is, because the problem is, and I'm sure I don't expect for people to think about this, but if I make the font bigger in one spot, I got to make it bigger everywhere. And there's a lot of places where that won't necessarily work, and things will crash into things and not fit. And, you can't have the font. We've all seen like old plugins from way back where, they designed it and the fonts, there's 14 different fonts and 15 different sizes, and it just looks terrible. So you want to keep the look. You want to keep the scale. If you really look at a picture of a real one, you look at ours, you'll see that actually the scale of the font is much bigger, or somewhat bigger. Again, you got to remember that the original thing is 3.5 feet wide or 3 feet wide. So just scale wise, the challenge is keeping it legible and that kind of thing. So that part's kind of tough. And I don't know if people realize, I don't expect people to cry me a river, but it's a little harder than you might think. When you start actually doing it, you go, oh, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
I think one of the things about the keeping the dual manual there, I mean, there are precedents, because there's B3 plugins where people have both keyboards showing and that kind of stuff. But I think with the Prophet 10 particularly, there is a way, the way you approach it and the way you think about it as you're programming it and interacting with it is so driven by the fact you have two synths, and because there are two keyboards, that's always in your mind, so you approach it differently than if it was just a single keyboard. I noticed that when I was playing with it earlier this week. It is, and I've used Prophet 10s fairly extensively in the past, and it does do that thing really well. Remember that the 10 was all about performance and playability for live. That was a real big thing for it when it launched, and it does that it does that really well, especially if you have two keyboards at the same time. You can do that, but just as it stands, it's a stunning thing. It looks. I think you've done a really good job with the interface.
And
Andrew,
also Mal, which should be mentioned here, Mal Meehan did all the 3D stuff. These days I do kind of a flat version of it and design where everything's going to be and how it's going to land. But he's the one who takes it and actually makes all the 3D controls. And every single one of those knobs and buttons is its own set of images, which takes him ages and me ages to sort out and make into working things.
There was a good question about the sort of going about the double manuals. Can you play each half of the Prophet 10 with separate MIDI channels? So if I had two controllers, I can...
Absolutely.
Yeah. So each manual, each keyboard can be set to its own MIDI channel. It's right on the front panel.
Yeah, right next to the pitch and mod wheels.
Split a single keyboard across both sides. There's a split mode. There's the alternating mode.
Which wasn't on the original, was it? Split. It didn't.
There's no split on the original because, of course, you have these two keyboards in front of you at all time. But Andrew kind of hit on something really important. That's part of the Cherry Audio philosophy, and I know it's not what every company does, but it's really important to us that when we make an instrument, you have the experience of being in front of that instrument.
Yeah.
And what we have learned, P10 is our 30th instrument release, if you can believe that.
Wow.
Which is kind of mind-blowing for us.
Wow.
But what we've learned is, as much as the sound of the filter and the oscillators and the envelopes, what affects how you play a synthesizer is the physical layout, the approach of it, the way the knobs are, whether it's knobs or sliders, all of it affects what happens when you stand in front of the instrument and actually play it. And so to us, we are trying to take these extremely rare, extremely valuable instruments and to just as much as possible recreate that experience, not just sound wise, not just layout wise, but the way you interact with it. If it didn't have the two keyboards, then I don't know that it would be a Prophet 10, because there are no other vintage synthesizers with two stacked keyboards like that. It's so unique and so much a part of the DNA of the Prophet 10. We had to have it. And as you said, you can hide those keyboards. You don't have to see them. We made sure that was in there because it does take up a lot of screen real estate. But yeah, when Mal showed us the 3D art, I think we all simultaneously spit out our coffee and were just shocked when we saw it. It's I think it's gorgeous. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming to like the sound of it, because obviously it is at its heart two Prophet 5 engines, but you've now got two of them to play with and split and layer and do all this wonderful stuff with. How did the I mean, obviously we don't have any. Well, we have James in the chat, but how did the sound designers take to it? Were they churning out stuff really quickly, or did it take a little getting used to the new way of operating this particular instrument?
Oh, I think it was instantaneous. Everyone has played a Prophet 5. Everyone on our sound design team has lots of experience with Prophet 5s. And if you've used a Prophet 5, you've essentially used a Prophet 10. The layout is very, very similar. There's one knob on a Prophet 10 that's not on a Prophet 5, and there's one knob on a Prophet 5 that's not on a Prophet 10. But otherwise, they are very, very compatible. And anyone that's ever played a Mini Moog has done 80% of the programming of a Prophet 5 because its layout and architecture is so inspired by the Mini Moog. And look, here's my cat again. I'm sorry, my cat today.
No, we love cats. We love cats.
This is Feather, and she wants to be part of the show.
Yeah,
she was actually my parents' cat.
Oh wow,
that's a true story. Yeah,
wow, that's true. Yeah.
You mentioned the sequencer on the original being close to useless. So you've obviously not recreated it one for one on this thing because that would be silly. So what have you done with the sequencer on the plugin that has made it infinitely more usable?
Dan, can I take this one?
Yeah, please do.
So So yeah, what happened was I watched a couple of videos because I knew nothing about the sequencer. I have a vintage Prophet 5 and I have a new Rev 4, and I'd played 10s, but I'd never messed with the sequencer. So I watched a couple of videos of people using the sequencer and came to the conclusion, like any logical person would, that it was awful. And I mean, it was pre-DAW days, of course, but the thought was like, well, anybody who has a DAW, and that's everyone, is never going to use this sequencer if we make it the same, because it's just a bad polyphonic recorder that doesn't have click, and it's just bleh. So Dan and I talked about it a little bit, and we did this bang up sequencer for the Elka X when we did it, which also on the Elk X was similar kind of thing. We didn't do it like the original for the same kind of reasons. And we had come up with this really cool 4-track, like 4 mono track sequencer that you can trigger by pressing keys, and it syncs immediately to MIDI clock. And it's just a very, for lack of a better way of saying it, synthesizer-y sequencer that works great and is a lot of fun to play and works, and it is different than recording in your DAW. So Dan and I talked about, we're like, hey, let's just take the LCAX sequencer and put it in here because it's great. And we worked on it really hard and it'll be perfect for this. The only challenge for me was fitting all the controls, because obviously we couldn't just drop all the controls in verbatim because LCAX has sideways buttons and stuff. So it was a fair amount. That might have been one of the hardest things about doing this UI, was shoehorning that sequencer in with the correct controls and not having it look smashed together and bad. I think it came up pretty good. So.
Yeah. So if people have got experience with the Elka X sequencer, then this should be incredibly
the exact same thing, just the controls shuffled around a little bit. Yeah.
Sweet. Is there anything else that you managed to do with your version in software that you weren't able to do with the original hardware? I mean, obviously you got rid of the overheating and the weight and everything, but
definitely Mitchell had the really clever idea of incorporating the poly aftertouch features of the Prophet T8 into P10, which I think is one of the coolest things.
It's really cool.
We just lifted it directly from the T8. I've got a T8 right there behind me. And the aftertouch, the poly aftertouch is the coolest thing about the T8. So we took that section, what they call poly pressure, and we incorporated it directly onto the P10. So it is fully playable with both mono and poly aftertouch, which was a great feature. Of course, we added velocity. We added, we had this clever idea of taking, we really, really carefully modeled the original Curtis low-pass filter. And we thought, well, since you've got 2 layers and there's so much you can do with this synth, why don't we take that Curtis low-pass filter and make a Curtis high-pass filter out of it? So there's a high-pass filter mode, which just opens up all kinds of new sound design possibilities. We added an arpeggiator. We added a whole suite of effects and a dedicated effects LFO, which just takes the effects in all kinds of wild new directions.
Oh, that's a really cool feature, by the way.
Oh
yeah, that comes straight from Atomica, because we did it on Atomica, and I was on I'm on a kick with that, so I thought, well, let's do the exact same thing. LFO is in the same spot, and it's able to modulate various effects parameters in addition to whatever onboard LFO you would have with a phaser or, the chorus, that kind of thing. But it's really neat because you can do synchronized stuff. You can do different waveforms. And, as I like to say, just kind of make a mess with the effects in ways that most, basic, boring effects implementations can't do. So that's a really nifty feature as well. It's nice.
Yeah, and combining the arpeggiator and the sequencer together at the same time, that can be extremely cool. We added some more polymod destinations, 1 or 2 more, I think, or monomod destinations, and
the amp
is syncable to tempo, and we did a lot to it. And I mentioned the knob that's missing on the Prophet 10 from the Prophet 5. We added that back in to the Prophet 10. That's the LFO and noise source mix knob, which was found on the Prophet 5 and got replaced with an LFO initial amount knob on the Prophet 10. So we added it back into the P10 design. So it is exactly like the original Prophet 5 engine.
Awesome.
Can I ask you a question?
Why not?
You very right at the beginning of this, you said that there were certain quirks in the Prophet that you discovered that no one else had, and they were a challenge, and you found very few other people had actually managed to incorporate these things. What were they? Because there's a sort of supplementary thing on once you deal with that. What were the quirks? What kind of things were you running into, and what were the challenges with those?
I'll tell you just a couple of them, because some of them are really sort of technical and weird. But some of them are really minor things, like if you're tracking the keyboard with the filter and you turn off keyboard tracking, then the filter pitch drops about 1.5 semitones. It's actually 0.1 volts, and it's just part of the Prophet 5's architecture. You have to have that if you're going to match everything perfectly. And we noticed that at least some of our competitors don't do that. There's a thing where, and again, these are details. They're highly detailed. If you use the LFO to modulate the pulse width, then the pulse width modulation works exactly the way you would expect it to. As the LFO goes positive, the pulse width gets fatter. Mm-hmm. But weirdly, if you use polymod, if you set oscillator B to be an LFO and you use it to modulate the pulse width of oscillator A, then that pulse width modulation operates in reverse. It's the opposite direction. So as oscillator B rises, the pulse width actually gets narrower. Now you would think, who cares? But we had a patch on the Prophet 10. We had a really complex patch on the Prophet 10 that sounded a certain rhythmic way. It created triplets. It was really cool. And when we sent that patch via sysx to the software didn't sound the same. And that drove us nuts for days and days until we finally figured out that this modulation works in reverse. Wow. There are several things like that in the Prophet 5. One of the weirdest things, and this is getting into the weeds, but the audio that's generated by oscillator B is not the same as the audio that's used for modulation when you use oscillator B as a modulation source. And I could not figure out why until I was studying the schematics, and I discovered that there's actually a separate mixer circuit to mix the waveforms together for modulation from oscillator B that's completely separate from the mixing circuit that's used to mix the waveforms together for the audio output of oscillator B. And so as a result, you end up with a different mix, and it modulates in a different way. I as you can see, this is really sort of nerdy technical detail.
We love the nerdy stuff.
But this is what we have to do. We're not building an instrument that sounds kind of like a Prophet 5. We're building something that responds identically. It was so important to us to be able to send any preset, no matter how complicated, from a Prophet 10 to the software and have them be played identically. We even had a Prophet 10 that was set up so that the top keyboard played the internal Prophet engine and the bottom keyboard controlled the software. And so we were able to dial up any patch on the top layer, send it via sysx to the software, and then play it on the bottom layer to make sure that they sounded identical. And this is a good 9 months worth of effort, and going back and forth, trying to figure out why things, why the software is a tiny bit duller sounding than the hardware, or why the LFO speeds are not matching perfectly. One of the things, again, I could go on and on and on about this, but what I want your audience to know is that we had access to 2 Prophet 10s and 8 Prophet 5s during the development of this software.
Just 8?
Including... No, you know what? I take that back. 9 Prophet 5s, because Mitchell has both a vintage and a reissue, right, Mitchell?
Of course. Yeah.
Yes.
So we did actually spend some time comparing to the reissue as well, mostly out of curiosity to see if the reissue was accurate to the vintage instruments. And a big part of what we found out is that when you have 8 vintage Prophets, you will discover that they are all calibrated differently.
Yeah.
And maximum envelope time, that was a good one. Maximum envelope time, if you set release all the way up, it differed anywhere from 17 seconds on at the shortest on some of our units to around 32 seconds.
It also changed on my vintage one as it warmed up.
That's right.
Yeah.
And much to my dismay, I had never, since I got my Rev 4, in all honesty, that's actually the road case for my old one right there, whoever Rick Copeland is. And since I got the reissue, I never played the old one. And so this was the first time I set them both up. They're not both set up right now, but they were stacked.
Yeah.
And where the vocoder is. And so I was actually, A-Bing them a lot, and then against RP10. But I was much disappointed to find that the old one actually sounded a little better than the new one, which really kind of broke my heart, because I thought, the new one, I don't even need the old one anymore. But it turns out do sound a little better.
I said I had a sort of follow-up question, and I mean, look at my hair. Fuck, what do I do with this? The other follow-up question was, or it's more of an observation, really, I suppose. I was in conversation with someone just earlier this week about the Prophet 10, and they said, well, surely, you just 2 Prophet 5s and you got it covered. And I said, well, kind of, yeah, you can have 2 Prophet 5s, 2 separate keyboards, but you don't get the experience that you get with the Prophet 10, with things like the layering and the detuning, from one keyboard or from both, and you don't get the alternate, and you don't get the differences between each engine. So you've got 2 Prophet 5s, 2 of them played from one keyboard, when you put it into stack mode or dual mode or layered mode, whatever you want to call it, you get that thickening that is just unrepeatable with 2 Prophet 5s when you're playing 2 separate ones at the same time. And the alternate mode was just astonishing. And what you've done with it here, by using the sequencer and using the arpeggios, is create something that you just cannot do on something else. You cannot do it. You can't have one keyboard playing both engines, one playing one arpeggio, one playing a sequence or whatever, and alternately, as you press the same chord, it will play a different set of notes, different way of doing it. It is unbelievably gorgeous. And I've got one other observation, which is I remember with the Prophet 10, iconic though it is, I kind of got a bit bored with it. The sounds kind of sounded a bit the same in the end. You knew what you were doing, and it was kind of, this is what you've done with the P10, is turn it into something that is not just iconic, but is actually playable. Adding velocity and adding aftertouch and poly aftertouch to it has just opened it up. And you're right, it is the T8 thing. I think it's genius what you've done. It's absolutely genius.
One quick thing about that I think Dan may have forgotten is I have a tendency, Dan and I will have these conversations, go, maybe we should make this, and they're really kind of off the cuff. And if I'm not busy, sometimes I'll start drawing things. And so this really started out with us talking about the T8 and thinking, maybe we'll do the T8 down the road. And I started drawing it, and I actually have files on my hard drive of T8 art, just really rough T8 art, because I thought we were going to do a T8. And I think the reason why we decided against it, Dan really wanted to do the 10, which I think was the way to go. But that all of the artwork that's in, I guess not the final artwork, but the initial artwork for all the poly aftertouch stuff, poly and aftertouch, comes from that T8 that I started doing So it was initially gonna be a T8, and I don't even know if I talked to Dan about it, but one of the reasons I realized I didn't want to do a T8 is it's so wide and skinny that it would have been a kind of not great form factor on the screen. So at least the 10 is more squat and together.
And the poly aftertouch on the T8 was never that reliable.
No, it wasn't great, was it? No. I mean, is there still a possibility? I mean, I'm not asking you to commit to anything, but could there be a possibility of a T8? Because that's never been done before.
So here's the thing about the T8. The T8 is basically a really beautiful version of a Prophet 600. Wow. And that in and of itself is fine. But in the Prophet 600, it has linear software envelopes. And it is the worst thing about the Prophet T8. It just kills me whenever I play it. Because it's like sitting at a piano with this beautiful weighted keyboard, and it's velocity sensitive. I mean, how many vintage analog synthesizers have velocity? There's the T8 and the CS80, and I think that might be it. And it begs you to play it like a piano. And yet, if you try to program anything to decay like a piano, where, a piano goes ding, and then really quickly decays and then slowly fades out. On the T8, everything, when it decays, it goes ding, and then just dies.
Oh, no.
And it's some smart person out there needs to fix the firmware of the Prophet T8 to make proper exponential envelopes, and it would become the most amazing instrument.
So,
but that honestly, that is a very unfortunate flaw of the T8, and it's something that the Prophet 5 and 10 do not suffer from.
But you could do that. You could build the T8 with proper envelopes.
If we ever do a T8, you better believe we
wouldn't gain much, though, because the only other things I think it has, there are some mod routings it does with and I think you can control the attack and decay rates to some degree with velocity, right? Or aftertouch. I'm sure somebody in the chat knows this, but other than that, like those mod routings, there's not too much difference. I mean, the primary thing you were really getting with a T8 was this big, I don't know how reliable it was from what you guys say, but this big weighted fancy keyboard. So obviously that's a non-thing for us. So I don't know that there's enough to really warrant it.
Yeah, you make some good points. I think, because I think Howard Jones had one in his live rig. Right. After the success of his first album, he kind of replaced a few things and upgraded. And I think he had a T8 with a DX7 on top. And I'm sure I read somewhere that he mostly used the T8 as a controller rather than as a synth. Yeah, because he was a pianist, trained pianist, classically trained, I think. And so he liked that. He liked that aspect of it. But I think, for synth stuff, it probably wasn't used an awful lot. So P10 is out now. It's $59, and you can buy that now from Cherry Audio and other excellent music technology software retailers all around the world in your own currencies. But it also forms part of the new version, the updated version of your mega collection of everything that Cherry Audio does, called SynthStack, and we now have SynthStack 5. And correct me if I'm wrong, this includes everything up to and including the P10, so all 30 instruments plus all the other bits and bobs that you've done over the years, the effects units and stuff.
It does not include the effects.
It doesn't include the effects. Sorry, my mistake. So it's all the synths, yeah. And I think the list price, if you're brand new to it, if you don't own a single Cherry Audio synth, and I don't believe there's anybody that doesn't. There can't be, can there? Surely. But if you don't own, if you've just landed from Mars and you wanted to buy this, it's like $499 US, and you get 30 instruments. Now, I can't do mathematics that quick in my head, but that's it's peanuts per instrument. However, of course, if you own one or more Cherry Audio synthesizer products, then the cost of the SynthStack comes exponentially down to the point where if you don't own, say, 2 or 3, it's like $20-$30 or something for making up the collection. But there is something very different about SynthStack this time, because it includes something else completely free of charge called Gig Performer or Gig Performer Lite. So can you tell us a little bit about what Gig Performer Lite is and why you've decided to include it in SynthStack 5?
Gig Performer Free, actually.
Right. Sorry.
And
I'm going to shoot my researcher, by the way.
No, it's just perfect. We know the Gig Performer guys. They're great, and there are a lot of videos out there on YouTube where people take multiple Cherry Audio instruments and layer and split them in all kinds of neat ways with Gig Performer. And so they came to us and said, "Look, we want to make this version, this Cherry Audio edition of Gig Performer that has a fewer features, but really, I mean, it kind of shocked us how much you can do with it. It does a lot. It's really, really quite good." And so so we include it with the new synth stack, and in addition, people that buy the synth stack can get a really nice discount on the full version of Gig Performer, and people that own the full version of Gig Performer can get a nice discount on synth stack.
Nice.
So it's a really nice partnership, but we're happy to have it. We get requests all the time from people saying, "Hey, you should put multiple Cherry Audio instruments together." And we always say, well, you can do that with your DAW. There are ways to do that. But now we have this tool that is really the best of its kind, that lets you do splits and layers and all kinds of neat MIDI control of multiple Cherry Audio instruments with ease. It's a great product. It really, honestly, blew us away when we saw what they were offering to Cherry Audio customers. It's just
have to grab that really down and play with that.
Because I guess it's kind of like it's a similar sort of thing to Main Stage that you get with Apple, that allows you to host multiple plugins, and there are some others. There's one that's, the name has completely gone out of my head now, but there are a few others. But as the name suggests, Gig Performer, this is kind of aimed initially, or certainly the main program is aimed initially at people who want to take their laptops out live. Quick, Mitchell, hurry back. To take their stuff out live and have a really easy host, rather than having to fire up a DAW. If they're not using it, they can just fire it up and stick those in there. So it's a really useful tool, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is great. And it's again, it's included with SynthStack, so everyone can play with it. And
Can I mention one more thing about P10, which Robert has reminded me of? I was going to mention it earlier as well. Again, with the P10, with the Prophet 10 and the P10, there is a thing, Robert posted this, which, there we go. Now, that's something you can't do with two Prophet 5s. You can only do it with the P10 or the Prophet 10. And that makes for some amazing textures and sounds. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's a feature that's on the original Prophet 10. It's probably one of the most misunderstood or hidden features in the Prophet 10. But there's a couple ways you can use it. One is you can turn off the waveforms on one of the layers for the LFO, and then turn on the mix. And that allows you to share one LFO with both the upper and lower layer, which is great for doing, any number of synchronized effects, especially if you tempo sync the LFO and then share it between the two layers. But also you can mix. You can have two different waveforms. Sorry,
I'm hearing that
today. But yeah, you can of course have essentially two different LFO waveforms, both mixing together and modulating at the same time, which is something that, again, when I think of vintage synths, I mean, there's the Moog Sonic 6 and Sonic 5 that let you do that, and not very many others. It allows for really complex and really, really interesting modulations, and like I say, it's probably the most misunderstood or unnoticed feature of the Prophet 10, and yet it's so cool. Yeah. You had to have it.
No,
so.
Yeah, the cat completely agrees. My next question was going to be for Mitchell. Oh, he's back. Oh,
you're worse now.
Yeah. So my next question was going to be for Mitchell. You've got a reissue Prophet 10 to your left there. Mm-hmm. did you do specific comparisons between P10 and that, rather than going between the 5 and the 10? Did you say hardware Rev 4, software version here, and what were your thoughts? Yeah.
Well, I think I mentioned before that I had, since I've owned the Rev 4 for a couple of years, I never had them both set up at the same time, the old one and the new one, and I just assumed they sounded the same. And this is actually, let this be a lesson to everyone. If you think like your ears are like, oh, this sounds exactly the same, which is what I thought, wrong. I am convinced that the only way you'll know if something sounds, quote, exactly the same is when you have them both on and next to each other and you're alternating back and forth in real time.
Yeah.
Anything else anyone says about how they remember how something sounds is 100% nonsense.
Right.
They've proven that your ear can only remember things for like something like 10 seconds or something.
Talking of ears, your
audio is really Dalek-y. I think maybe your marketing guy, who's a massive Doctor Who fan, has applied the Dalek filter to your microphone.
I think the only way I can fix this is restart. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, while you do that, we need to hand out a late pass to Mr. Spong.
Hey, it's Ken.
You've got my hair.
Go on.
What?
What's your excuse?
Happened?
You're an hour late.
Oh, I now have internet.
Yay! Is it fast internet?
Well, as if that wasn't a giveaway. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we'll be there between 12 and 6.
Oh.
So they arrived at 10 past 6. They've just gone. They let the dogs out.
You let the dogs out. Sorry.
And then as I'm coming up the stairs to set up the Mac Studio, the doorbell goes and they'll go mental again and everything. So I go downstairs and these have turned up.
Hey!
Literally.
No echo.
No echo?
Yeah. No, it's fine. It's perfect. It's beautiful.
And so, actually, I have a question.
Yes.
I was trying to watch the show as best I could on the mobile, which was taking its time, children. Somebody in the chat said something about, I think it might have been Biscuit, I can't be sure, said that a memory moog was like 6 mini moogs.
Right.
And my question is this: am I allowed to slap him?
Yes. Very much so.
Right.
A virtual slap. A virtual
Come
slap.
over. Yeah. There you go.
Oh, there you go, Biscuit. Consider yourself slapped.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's almost, but it isn't. That's the thing. It isn't. It isn't.
I think we should actually do a show one day on these synthesizers that are essentially multiples of other synthesizers and expanded, or yes or no. So yeah, maybe we should do a show on, because I was talking about it earlier and you weren't here to slap me. And I mentioned about the CS80. Is the CS80 essentially two of the smaller ones put together, or are you going to punch me in the face too?
No, it is essentially two CS60s.
Yeah.
Right. Or 4 CS80s, as far as the voices are concerned.
Right.
But then there's additional circuitry, obviously, for the polyphonic aftertouch and all the rest of it. So there's additional boards. But essentially, it's exactly the same components in the 50, in the 60, and in the 80. Right across the board. So it's the same VCO, same with filters, same resistors, same transistors, you name it.
Mm.
You can take parts from an 80 to put in a 50 and vice versa.
Right.
To get one or the other going. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But not the power supplies.
Okay, yeah. Well,
but the power supplies are made from the same components. It's just that each one has a different size coil to take the amperage of each individual instrument.
Right.
Yeah,
apparently,
you virtually has mono aftertouch. So it does have aftertouch, but it's a mono.
Yeah, but because it's a mono aftertouch, there's none of that intricate circuitry under the keyboard that does all the 8-channel routing.
Yeah.
But it does do an aftertouch, and it works the aftertouch in exactly the same way as the polyphonic aftertouch, but of course only just the one. But that's if I'll remember this. On the CS60, the aftertouch is done by light sensor.
Yeah, that's right.
So you have a light receiver and a bulb, and a literally just a little blanky metal plate in between. And as you push it down, it moves the plate and allows more light through. On the 80, it's individual shaped rubbers that are carbonated on the underside. So as you push the key down, it collapses from one end, so it works like a pot. Works like a slider almost, but per key. And that always has problems as well. You get a lot of things going on just under that keyboard alone. Is,
and
horrible.
Kent, what do you make of what do you think about? We all know the T8 had fairly unspectacular aftertouch. Now that the P10, the plug-in, is now out with poly aftertouch and normal aftertouch and velocity, what do you make of that? Because it's something that the P10 was always, it always was crying out for. What's your thoughts on that?
P10 didn't have aftertouch.
I know, but the P10 now, the plug-in.
Oh, the P10 now. Well, I fired up the P10 and asked my Hydra to speak to it, and my Hydra is not speaking to it, and there was no presets in it. When I run the standalone, the presets turn up, but it won't list the MIDI input of my Hydra synth. I just go, oh God, when will this ever end? So technical issues, basically.
This sounds like a Mac thing again, a driver issue thing.
No, this is probably a Focusrite and some shitty Amazon MIDI cables. More likely.
Or the fact maybe your Hydra synth is set to MPE and not poly aftertouch.
No, I put it into into poly channel. Yeah.
Anyway, it worked great off of this, by the way. Worked perfect.
Moving on. There is another Cherry Audio thing I want to discuss, just touch on briefly. And that is this news that your Chroma is now official. It's got the Rhodes badge on it. I just wondered if maybe, Dan, you could enlighten us on what happened to get this accreditation.
I'll tell you, this is, for me, it's just a huge honor. We put so much work into the Chroma to match the hardware and have, again, all the SysX and tape data transfer over and have all the presets sound the same. And what happened was, when we released it, almost immediately when the Chroma came out, I got an email from the CEO of Rhodes in the UK, basically congratulating us on the release of the Chroma and telling us that they had always wanted to do a Chroma themselves, and they just hadn't gotten around to it, and we'd beaten them to it, and they felt that our Chroma was 1-to-1 with the hardware, so there wasn't much point in them doing it anymore. So he was kind of lamenting that, and we talked about it and said, well, why don't we make it a Rhodes product? Why don't we put the Rhodes name on it and officially make it the Rhodes Chroma? And everyone was excited about that, and we did that. And for me, it's really, really cool that our Chroma is now part of the history of the Rhodes Chroma.
Yeah.
That's
it's
fantastic.
Not just an instrument that looks like a Chroma and has the Chroma name. It really is now the next generation of the Rhodes Chroma.
Yeah.
It's a small thing, but it's, again, we've done 30 instruments. We put so much effort into these products, and to have that kind of recognition, it just means a lot. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Small thing, but it really means a lot.
And it's not very confusing that you and the CEO from Rhodes have almost similar names, and every time I type an email to either one of you, the other one comes up and pre-populates, and the amount of times I've had to just stop myself from sending you an email that's going to Mr. Dan Goldman, or vice versa. So that's not going to be very confusing. But no, congratulations.
Well, I emailed myself once or twice during the discussions.
Yeah, I bet. No, but congratulations, seriously, because I mean, it's such a well-received instrument. As you can see, it's got Compute Music 10 out of 10, Music Radar 5 stars. It's got all the accolades, and it rightly now has the accreditation, which I think is very well deserved. So congratulations. Let's move on. I just want to see what we've got in the question queue. Before I do, welcome to the membership, Sergei Marchenko. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. You've become a YouTube member. That's fantastic. Thank you very much for doing that. Our friend Robert Fat Dusk Hex, thank you for your £5 donation to the Neo-Synthesists. Scott Macaulay Sands will be talking about you in just a moment as well. Thank you very much for your donation of £10 And Jason Crouch has given us close to a £5, it's $4.99, asking if there's any merch in pink. And do you know what? There is. There is. Let me show you. Here's one example. And if there's something that you want that isn't in pink, let me know what it is you want, and I will address that. But this is berry. I mean, it's kind of pink. The official colour is berry. But we can do most colours, but there are some items that we can't. But there is merch that is available in various colours and shades. Chris Mayer, how about an SSM filter emulation from the Rev 1 and 2 Prophet 5 for the virtual P10? Who wants to take that one?
That's actually a great question. That was originally part of Mitchell's design. But the truth is that the Prophet 10, the sequential Prophet 10 that we based this on, never had an SSM filter. There never was an SSM version. And I own a Rev 1 Prophet 5 with the SSM filter. And I can tell you that despite, there's a lot of lore and long story short, it is a slightly different low-pass filter. It's not wildly different. And ultimately, after discussing it with James Terrace, our lead sound designer, we felt that having a high-pass filter option offered way more sound design possibilities than having a slightly different low-pass filter that really was not authentic to the original. So tough call. I admit that it hurt a little bit to change that design because the SSM filter is sort of legendary in its own way, but it just wouldn't be accurate to a Prophet 10.
Yeah, no, good answer. Good answer. Right, so I think that's. We had one more question for Peter James Stephen, who says, I think you might have already answered this, but I assume the P10 can send and receive, because you were talking about sending and receiving sysex. Is that something it can do, send or receive original patches? Or
P10 can receive sysex from a Prophet 5 and from a Prophet 10. It doesn't send sysex. We don't send sysex because we're a plugin, and of course we have a lot more controls than the hardware does, so it would never really be a one-to-one matchup. But you can receive sysex from a Prophet 5 and a Prophet 10. Now that said, I don't know how many people know about this. I mean, the diehard Prophet people do, but Prophets did not originally have MIDI. There was an aftermarket factory kit from Sequential Circuits that added MIDI, including sysex, to the Prophet, but there was a bug in the sysex code, which is hilarious since Dave Smith is the one who designed the sysex code. But Prophets, when they send sysex, do not send the terminating character at the end of sysex to tell anyone receiving the sysex that the sysex data has ended. Fortunately, Tontech, Bob Grebe over at Tontech has a version of the Prophet 5 firmware that fixes that. And so we were fortunate enough to have a Prophet 10 with the Tontech fix so that we could send properly formatted sysex. But yeah, that's always been a weird sort of problem with the original Prophet 5. One of the Prophets that we used to do this project was even this super cool and very rare Studio Electronics
oh wow,
P5, which is a rack-mounted Prophet 5 that relies entirely on MIDI since it doesn't have a keyboard of its own. And weirdly, even this version has the sysx bug.
Really?
Yeah. So Tauntec, TAUNTEK.com. If you own a MIDI Prophet and you'd like to fix that, that's the way to do it.
I've never seen one of those Studio Electronics ones before.
Yeah, they're really rare.
Yeah, that's super cool.
They also made a Studio Electronics rack-mounted Oberheim OB8, and I've always wanted one of those.
And the answer to that, Justin, is yes, you can. It does. It works in Biotimbral. Put it into normal mode, set a different channel for each one of and you've got complete control. You have two keyboards controlling each of the engines. Right. It works. It's a great thing.
And of course, Paul Artolo is going to ask the question we always tend to ask on this one, and we know we'll never get the answer, but are there any more original synths? We don't need to know what they are, but are you planning anything original coming there? Because the stuff you've done has gone down so well. It's been such well-received stuff.
This is really premature, but Tuesday we released the P10, and Wednesday morning, I don't know if it was just because the pressure was off because we worked so hard on this product to get this release done. But Wednesday morning, I sat down here in my chair and I thought, oh, I've got a good idea for a synthesizer. So that's right now it's just an idea, but I'm actually really anxious to do some prototyping and see if it works as well. I haven't even spoken to Mitchell about this.
Yeah, I don't even know about it. Can you hear me, by the way?
You're very quiet. I know you switched your mic because you were having trouble.
Yeah, it's cranked up. I'm using my internal mic thing now.
It's kind of it's very roomy, but it's better than without the it's better with the buzzing.
Sorry.
No, it's cool.
So there is a germ of an idea, a speck of an idea for something very unique and different that we may pursue.
Cool stuff.
All I can say at this point.
Well, I'll give you guys a little bit of a breather now because we're just going to sort of do 2 or 3 of these things that we now are able to do. Before I do that, I know Ollie, who came into the chat a little bit late, I just wanted to share, just maybe for the ladies in the audience, him modelling one of our fantastic T-shirts. There we go, everyone. Get a load of that, screenshot it, put it in, make it your phone. It's just brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Ollie, for that. But what we received today, or actually no, it was yesterday, I think it was, we received our first video from someone who's bought merchandise. And not only did they wear the T-shirt and give us a little sort of shout out in the video, they also then did a nice lovely noodle on a Moog synthesizer. He goes under the name of Gethsemane Music. His name is Brian Oliva. I think, didn't we have him on the show? I think we might have had him on the show at some point.
He's a lovely man.
He's a great man. He's got the most amazing voice. And he can play a mean synthesizer. So I thought I would share, with Brian's permission, his little video with his merchandise.
Yeah.
Hello, this is Brian Oliva at Gethsemane Music. I just wanted to touch base with you guys and tell you I've got my brand new ProSynths Network T-shirt arrived today in bright orange. Helps you see in the dark, and it's just an amazing piece of merchandise. So thanks to Robbie and all the guys for making all this stuff available. One other thing though is, just in wearing this tonight for the first time, I can feel that it's changed my life already. I've considered myself really just an amateur, hobbyist, just messing around with my keyboards here, although you may say I have a bit of gas from everything you see around me. But aside from that, just banging on the keys, doing hardware jams for the Hardware Jams group, and just having fun after my retirement. And I have to tell you, since I got this shirt, my skills have just improved exponentially. I can't even describe it. I'll do a little demo on the Model D after just to show you, but it's just amazing the confidence that this shirt builds, and I can't thank the guys at PSN enough for coming out with these great products. Also on my YouTube channel, I'm creeping up on the 1,000 subscriber mark, so my Black Friday special is if you click on this video to get into YouTube and click the subscribe button today, you'll be subscribed to my channel absolutely free, with no strings attached. And just take this opportunity to pump it up, like some videos, watch some of the playlists, do whatever you can. But really appreciate it and everything PSN does. And since I have this shirt now, I really feel much more like a pro. Anyway, I'll do a little demo now. I can just feel the Emmys coming beyond this. So Michael Whalen, be careful. I'm right behind you. Anyway, thanks, guys.
Oh, that was brilliant. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that deserves a massive round of applause.
Yeah.
Brian the Lever,
done,
everyone.
Brian.
The T-shirt actually worked.
Yeah,
They
do.
They possess and instill magic powers. Well done.
Since I got my shirt, I've been eating more. So
yeah.
And you've been making more plugins.
Yeah.
Same amount of plugins.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Better.
Yeah.
Some people thought that was this week's Synthspirations. You were wrong.
It
wasn't. If you don't know what Synthspirations is, it's our new segment that has gone down rather well, where we ask you, our lovely viewers, to tell us what inspired you to make music with... I did that too early, didn't I?
Yeah.
Synthspirations.
Yeah, silly. We want to know what music inspired you to make music with synthesizers. Be it an album, single, or an entire artist's body of work, we want you to tell us why it inspired you, and given that we're a synth show, which instruments used on that album really made an impact. All you need to do is film yourself talking about your synthspiration for a few minutes, and we'll feature it on the show and discuss it. Send your video clips along with your name or handle to prosynthnetwork@gmail.com using a file sharing service like WeTransfer, and you could feature on a ProSynth Network live show soon. It's true, you can feature on one of our shows, just like this next gentleman. We know him as Kissing the Machine. He called me out in Sainsbury's in Thorpe near Norwich, or just on the outskirts of Norwich, a few years ago. A couple of years ago, I think it was. And he said, "Oi, are you that Rob fellow off of ProSynth Network?" And I said, "Yeah, what have I done?" And he said, "No, I watch the show all the time." And so he's now sent in his Synthspirations, which because it's a little bit longer, I couldn't fit it into the thing. I now have to do this thing where I have to share the video from my server. But we'll get there in a minute. Here he is. This is Sean, a.k.a. Kissing the Machine, and his Synthspirations. Press play. There we go. There we go. Oh, there it is.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, PSN, everybody watching and everyone in the chat room. I'm Sean, or if you are regular viewers and in the chat room, you would probably know me better as Kissing the Machine. And just like to talk about an album that was very definitely an inspiration for me from way back when, and probably trace it all the way back from there to sitting here surrounded by all of this kit. And it's an album that was brought out in 1980. And I'm just going to adjust my camera and show you it where it normally lives. Pride of place above the synths. I'll just go and take it down in a minute. In fact, I'll go and take it down now. So this is, if you haven't recognised it, it is Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark, and their self-titled, back to front actually, self-titled album from 1980. And I was 17 at the time. And I'm just going to take this out of the frame and just tell you a little bit about the history of the album and how I came across it and then what it meant to me. So if I take this out and just show you there, hopefully on the camera, you can see signatures. The history was that when we were at school, we used to just cycle down to my mate's house at lunchtime. He's actually signed it here, handsome Ian, modest as always. And we'd cycle down to his house, 5 or 6 of us, and we'd just spend the lunchtime eating our sandwiches and listening to whatever was on the turntable. And he had an older sister. We were 17, I think she might have been 20, 21, infinitely cooler than us and into music, and she was listening to lots of alternative stuff. And this was on the turntable. Didn't know what it was at the time. We just stuck it on one lunchtime, listened to it, and I just thought that sounds quite interesting. And it certainly wasn't the first electronic music I'd listened to. I'd listened to Kraftwerk on and off through the 70s, and I was a big Jean-Michel Jarre fan by then. But this just caught my ear, and then for lunchtime, after lunchtime, weeks and weeks and weeks, I pestered my friends. I just said, listen to the orange one, listen to the orange one. And they got fed up of it. And they eventually bought it for me for my 17th birthday. So it was actually quite a treasure to me because the signatures there of lots of friends, old school friends, on the back. And I just played it continuously on my parents' little mono turntable that sat on their sideboard at home. My dad was a massive crooner fan, so he was into Sinatra and Jim Reeves and Tony Bennett and all of that. So you can imagine how this thing went down. He hated it. So it just made me play it more and more. And this was the album that I think cemented my love, certainly of the band. It's been a lifelong thing for me, OMD. Actually love the band and their music. But this was the album that really cemented the realisation that I liked the sound of synthesizers, even more than the musicality in the tunes, I think. And quite famously, this was just a single synthesizer album, Korg Micro Preset, and then lots of other equipment, I think, that Paul Humphries had made himself. And it's just a very complex album made with actually very simple kit. Famously, Andy McCluskey bought the Korg synth from his mum's mail order catalogue, and I researched it. I think it was $776 for 36 weeks. It's about £280, and adjusting that for inflation from 1980 to now, that's just short of £1,900. So thinking what you could get now with the equivalent, you're into, well, Pro 3, Sub 37, Matrix Brute, how things have moved on. But yeah, it was really just that appreciation of the sound of a synthesizer. And part of the inspiration for me is when I'm messing around with these things, if I'm not particularly inspired to try and make music or make a tune, just listening to the sound of them is enough for me. And I think this is where it all started. If I take it out, I don't know if you can see it, but it looks like I've eaten my dinner off it. I mean, I played this so much, I'm sure it wouldn't play now. 3 singles on it: Red Frame, White Light, Electricity, and Messages. If you know the album, then a particular favourite of mine is the last track on side 1, the Messerschmitt Twins. But just really nostalgic when I listen to it now. And thinking about it musically, and I wouldn't have thought this at the time because I just listened to music. I wouldn't have had any language to describe music or anything like that. When I listen to it now, it is pitch drifty and detuned and, full of all of the things that sometimes I think we just try to get out of our music. And I call it laziness, but when I'm messing around with this stuff and it's not quite in tune, then I think, well, if it was good enough for OMD, then it was good enough. Then it's good enough for me. So yeah, that's the album. Yeah, I can trace it all the way back to this album and this group. So thank you for indulging me. If I'm in the chat and this is played, then happy to answer any questions. And yeah, we'll just have a chat about it. But thank you, and have a good rest of the evening. Thank you. Bye now.
All on mute. Sorry. There we go. I have to do that. It does interfere. Thank you, Sean, aka Kissing the Machine. He is in the chat if you want to, and I know he's been answering a few questions if you want to do. But thank you for sending that in. Really appreciate that. Also, the fact that I think for most of us, OMD were probably a big inspiration, an influence to us. That they were early pioneers of that kind of electro synth pop stuff, and great machine, great albums, and getting the best out of minimal kit, which was always the thing back in the day. Really great choice. If you want to be featured on Synthspirations, and we have a few in the queue, but if you want to join that queue, then please do film a short video. It doesn't have to be professional. It doesn't have to be done with high-end equipment. Just get your mobile phone or your webcam, and just in a few minutes, just tell us about what inspired you. Which song, which album, which single, which artist, and why, and the links to the equipment and how it got you where you are. I'm slowly getting ready to do mine, and I'll have that up. We'll do that in one of the shows.
Can I do one?
Of course you can. We love.
I want to do one too.
Oh, the microphone's going again. The microphone's bad again.
Is it bad again?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah. But yes, absolutely, Mitchell. Anyone, whether you're a guest, whether you're a viewer, please do send us your Synthspiration videos. All you got to do is just film it. Don't use the music because we'll get told off. We'll get slap wrist. So don't play the music. But send us your videos. Send it to prosynthnetwork@gmail.com. But use one of those file transfer services like WeTransfer. Others are available. And you can send those to us, and we'll put them up on the show as and when. We've got a great one next week from a guy called Carl, and Carl actually didn't even put himself on camera, but he compiled a video and put some little sound effects and things in there, and it's quite a nice little thing. So like I said, you don't have to, if you're camera shy, it's okay. Just use pictures and images. It's all fine. Send those in to us, and we'd love to see them and hear them. And I think a lot of the people in the audience are really, really appreciating it. So we've got about half an hour left. We've talked about P10 and all things Cherry Audio. So we've got there's not a huge amount of news this week, but there were one or two things that I did want to mention. So first of all, I want to mention this. By the wonderful Scott McCauley, who is in the chat. He's one of our members, but he's also an incredibly good sound designer. And he's just done this brand new bank for the Arturia Polybrute, both 6 and 12. So these will work on both machines, but of course on the 12, it'll be doubly spectacular. There's another instrument where they've taken one synth and kind of doubled it up. Let's have a listen, because there are some great demos of this. We'll play some short clips of Scott's work. Here's one. I could sit and listen to those for a long time, but I don't have to anymore because they're installed into my Polybrute 12. You notice that second patch, he pressed one key and then just stepped away. And that's the LFO doing all of that heavy lifting in terms of the pitch. And there's no sequencing, there's no arpeggiator going on there. It's very clever what it can do. And you can get that and 99 other sounds in this new 100 custom patch bank for a mere £22.50. Normally £29.99. But hey, it's Black Friday. He's doing a sale. Along with all of his other sounds on the Orano.co.uk website for other hardware synthesizers. There's more demos for you to check out there. It's a wonderful bank of sounds. Scott's got such a great ear and a great talent for doing presets. I've got a bunch of his stuff, and it's very, very good. So I think this is one of the first kind of dedicated patch banks that has been made with a Polybrute 12. But I've seen anyway, third party. So there you go. Scott McCauley Sounds, orano.co.uk is the link, and you can go and avail yourself of one of those. Have you bought that yet, Kent? Because you've got a new puppy there. And it's not a dog kind?
No. Well, actually, I was waiting for the web address.
Okay, it's orano.co.uk. ORANO.co.uk. Come on, mods. Hurry up. The mods normally are right on this. But yeah, actually, I suppose I can do it while you're doing that. orano.co.uk. There it is. In there.
Got it. Yeah, got it.
That's it.
Yeah.
And you can buy that for yourself now. And it's a brilliant pack of sounds.
Do you know what's really cool about people like himself and James and all these other brilliant sound designers we have? They open up. They spend so much time getting to know these things. They open up worlds of possibility that you wouldn't necessarily discover just playing the instrument by yourself. And when you hear their presets, you kind of, if you want to, you can dive in and you will find out more about how a machine works and what you can do with it, or a plugin, than any other way. The same was true with the Chroma stuff, by the way. Some of the Chroma presets were just impenetrably wonderful, but this for the PB12 and some of what James has been doing as well, just they're a masterclass in sound design. And if you listen to them, get them, follow them through, see what's going on, you will learn more about the synths you're using than any other possible conceivable way.
Yeah, they're very good. I was very fortunate. Scott kind of asked me if I could run them through my machine before they went on sale, and I just sat here, and I can't honestly say I got through all 100 because I got stuck. You get a good patch bank, you get stuck on one sound, you're just there forever on that one sound because it's so good, and then trying to figure out how he did what he did. That's
the thing, and that's the lesson. Also, I've got to give a bit of a shout out to Tim Shoebridge, who did some amazing demos for the P10, and sort of takes it away from that. It's just two P5s. He really shows that off. And James has done some fantastic demos as well. So there's some really good stuff out there. It's always worth paying attention to these guys. They know their stuff.
Absolutely.
That's like Bolt.
There you go. Thank you. Let me know what you think. I want to give two little plugs here. We don't have to discuss these, but we had the great Anthony Marinelli on the show last week, and we were so privileged and honoured that he announced, he premiered his brand new synth tutorial course called Think Like a Synth. And it is now out for pre-order. It will land in your inboxes, if you pre-order, of course, on the 21st of December. Let me just throw this up on screen. Here it is. It's at anthonymarinellimusic.com. Learn his method. And let me just get rid of the cookie thing. It's there. Pre-sale gets you 35% off. You've got 21 days, 3 hours, 21 minutes, and 5, 4, 3 seconds to get in on that 35% discount. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Oops, what am I doing there? There we go. Hit the right button.
I have no idea.
Yeah. So this is it in UK pounds. The site dynamically sorts the price out for you, so you're not going to have to do the conversions in your head. So currently £232. It's normally £358. You get 24 lessons that total 6.5 hours of tuition of how to program synthesizers using the Anthony Marinelli method. That's not a thing. It's just, Anthony tells you how to do it. And he uses on-screen graphics, and he has his incredible son Dante there as a foil to talk with. We saw all about that last week. So if you want to know more, go and check that out. The promo video that we showed is also on his YouTube channel. Talking of which, he just released a video before we came on air, thankfully, because it would have taken a number of our viewers away, I'm sure. He talked about this on the show last week. This is how they made Thriller, featuring the legend that is Greg Fillinganes. And I'm going to try and get Greg on the show at some point. No promises, but I really want to speak to Greg.
Greg's a cool guy.
They recreated the instrumental track of Thriller using as many of the original synthesizers as possible. They, in my opinion, they absolutely knocked the conspiracy theory that's going around that the bass was a Jupiter 8 on the head definitively by doing this video. They even got a brass section in. They got a guitarist in to do the guitar parts, and then Greg was playing all the keyboard parts, and Anthony was doing a little bit there, and it's mixed by one of Anthony's team. It's fantastic. It's 12 3/4 minutes of your day, incredibly well spent. And Greg is an absolute scream. So it's really, really cool. Please go and watch that video. Give Anthony, if you haven't given Anthony a subscribe already. I can't believe that ProSynth Network hasn't subscribed. There we go. We've just subscribed. I have him on my other thing. But there we go. Done. See? Done. So Anthony can't have a go at me anymore. So there you go. That's Anthony Marinelli. He was on the show last week, and that's what he was talking about. It's now there. Go and check it out on his website and his YouTube channel. We've got 20 minutes left, and we've got Greg and Mitchell. Sorry, Greg and Mitchell. Oh, my brain is mush. We've got Dan and Mitchell from Cherry Audio. Let me bring them all up on screen now. Hopefully,
hi, Greg.
Yeah, hi, Greg. Whoever Greg is.
Greg.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as bad enough that I get Dan Goldstein mixed up with Dan Goldman, and now getting it mixed up with Greg Fillinganes. You're software guys. Well, certainly your business is all about software. And in the last, year or so, 18 months, we have been inundated with AI, machine learning. It's taking over. It's going to do all of this kind of stuff. And I kind of would like to understand what you think about how AI in our industry is going to affect us. It's going to affect you, maybe. And this is all based off a story that came out today, yesterday.
Yesterday. Yeah.
From NVIDIA. And NVIDIA have, and this is, I honestly thought somebody pressed the April Fool's button a few months early. They've got this new AI, generative AI model from NVIDIA that can create any combination of music, voices, and sound. And it's called Fugato. And there's a picture of a cat on a computer with some headphones on. I'm hoping that's photoshopped. But essentially, they've created this piece of software that, well, I'm not sure. NVIDIA are a very large company. If I play their video clip, they will probably slap me down. So I'm not going to do it. But it's raised again this kind of debate about AI in our industry, and is it going to take over? Is it threatening jobs and positions? Is it going to destroy elements or the entire creative industry? Before I go to our guys, I want to come to the software guys that are in the house today. What's your take on AI in the music technology business, and are you considering using it? Do you see possibilities for using it in what you do, or are you completely against it? What say you, Mr. Goldstein?
Well, I mean, my main concern is if you take a look at that cat, the headphones that he's wearing are not actually on his ears. So
do you know,
even if he listens to this music, it's going to be pretty muffled.
Why didn't I notice? So right, absolutely, yeah. 1-0 Okay, so that's AI messing up straight there. 1-0 to the humans.
No, look, maybe this is a bit optimistic, but when the Hammond organ came out, Hammond was sued by people saying, you can't call this an organ. It's going to put organ players out of work. And when the Moog synthesizer came out, the musicians union sued and said, you can't play synthesizers. It's going to put musicians out of work. And I mean, we have always had this sort of threat, but I would say, and again, maybe this is optimistic, but I would say that at best AI is a tool, and tools can be used to make good music and they can be used to make bad music, but they can't replace the talent that it takes to use the tools to make good music, any more than buying a copy of P10 will make you automatically a great musician. It's a tool, and you can use it to make great music and you can use it to make bad music. So what I would like to see is AI being used to help musicians make better sounds, make better beats. The current things we see where you can go to an AI website and say, make a song that sounds like, hip hop and techno combined together, and it spits something out. That's not the creation of music any more than any of the other tools that have been made to take composition and songwriting away from artists over the years. That's not what AI's role will ultimately be. I don't think people are going to go out and buy albums written by AI because they're so fantastic. But I do think that there is the possibility of using AI to help create better synth sounds, to help create, more interesting new sounds that can be used by a musician to create music. So that's my sort of hopeful take on the subject. But, who knows? When I saw that NVIDIA video, and I saw a little bit about what these new models can do, and it's a little scary. It's exciting and scary and weird, and who knows? Who knows what'll happen?
Mitchell, have you got an opinion? We can't hear it, though.
We'll never know it.
We'll never know what it is. Unless somebody can lip read. But no, he's silent. Okay, well, we'll let him figure that one out. Andy, you and I are both in the creative industries. We work with video content, with voiceover content, all this kind of stuff. What's your thoughts on this in particular in the music technology industry?
Well, I had a really good look at Fugatu, and hello, something's going on. That sounds like Mitchell. I had a really good look at it, and it's not ready. It's got some examples of stuff it's done well, and I've had lots of demos of things that are done well in a controlled environment.
Yes.
We yet to see it happen. The other thing is that most of these companies that are doing this AI, you can go really far with AI, but the problem you can run into pretty quickly, they did all their examples on machines that had multiple numbers of their really expensive graphics stroke AI cards to generate it. The other problem they've got is they're not giving any information about what their learning sources are, where they've learned this stuff from. That represents another really big issue for broadcasters, film, for radio stations, TV, streamers, all of those. They're all saying, look, yeah, all right, you're using AI tools. We can't use it. If you can't tell us exactly where this has come from, what the derivations are, we're not going to take a risk on opening ourselves up to a lawsuit. And I think Dan made a really good point about organs and different technologies coming in. When synths came in, and then samplers particularly as well.
Oh, yeah.
The Musicians Union lost their shit about it over here and in the States, saying you're going to put musicians out of work. What happened at that time was orchestral music had spread into the pop thing more and more, because it was able to, and it was charging a lot of money, too much. The session fees were just mad. So what happened was there was a bit of a readjustment, but where people were using synths instead of orchestras, and it didn't sound the same. It sounded different, sounded good, but different. What happened is that orchestral music has actually grown, and it's become its own thing. It's gone back to what it does well, which is concerts in the round with audiences that want to hear real music played, and it's retrenched, and there are more orchestras and orchestral music being played now than there was before this all kicked off. I think that's the same with AI. AI cannot have the lived experience of a creative person creating music or making film or whatever. AI can't do that. It requires that lived experience to have a point of view and a context that people will come back to that will grab an audience. There will be undoubtedly AI hits, maybe using this kind of thing. There will be. But it's not going to replace musicians. And there's going to be some resettling going on in all of our industries as we work out what it means. But the tools are there and people will use them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I used an AI tool almost like for the first time in a paid job recently, where I had to edit some audio, and the tool that we use for our podcasting has a section where you can upload the audio to the AI tool. It will go through it. It will transcribe it, and the transcription is virtually word perfect. It's really accurate. But what it will also do is, if you want to edit certain bits out, you can just click in the text, and it will mark the playheads, and you can just chop the text away just by looking at the words. Now, I know from editing quite a few podcasts that editing by listening is not an easy thing to do, because you're concentrating on what's being said. You've kind of forgotten what was said 30 seconds ago, whereas on the page it's very simple to see where the cuts can be made. And I very quickly edited 3 large sections of audio down to a much more compact and concise and listenable form, all because of this machine learned tool. And it was incredibly gratifying and time saving. And I know that other people are using these tools to write not necessarily articles, but if they just want to get like a brief synopsis of something, they're just prompting this engine to say, give me a biography of such and such a person, and it goes off and it comes back, and you can edit it, and if it doesn't quite make sense, or maybe there's something wrong, which there often is, you can correct it. But it does save you a lot of time, and for those sort of things, I'm not too worried about AI.
In video, that is there's tools that's been around for a little while now, certainly for Adobe and various others, where you can do exactly that. You transcribe it, and you can actually edit using text. And that's really good, because that does the job that, I mean, it's not really good because someone's losing a job over this, but it's getting rid of the assistant editor who would have gone through stuff and pulled out the parts he thinks you want, and then you but the actual edit itself, and the same with the edit you did, it's about finding those little moments and then going, okay, let's let it breathe a bit more. Let's just, that doesn't quite work. The intonation on that isn't quite right. So you find the places. So the job of editing is not going to disappear because of these things. It's going to get easier to manage the amount of content that's out there, though. And there is a lot of content.
Exactly, and there's going to be more. Ken, have you got an opinion on this?
I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle. No, as James Dyson will attest, Louis Wu knows best. When I hear these arguments about AI, I can't help thinking about something that used to be screamed in my ear about 40 years ago about samplers will destroy the music business, put musicians out of work. I don't really know. I think what AI will excel at is creating music that sounds like all the other music that AI is creating. That's where it'll excel, and you'll be able to spot it a mile off anyway.
Yeah.
You can spot the AI generated adverts, AI generated people, AI
the benchmark
generated.
Is how many fingers have they got?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, admittedly, obviously, it's getting better and better and better, and it's getting harder and harder to determine it. But there's still something very generic about it, and music tends to come with a persona of some sort, right? There's a person or people that accompany it, or an idea, or an attitude, or something that generates a following that gets people involved and everything like that. AI cannot generate that. AI can never generate that. I think if AI was to take over music creation across the board, people are adaptive. They'll come up with a new, different way of doing it that AI can't.
Yeah, very true.
Even if it got to that point. I can understand people being very worried about what AI might actually be capable of. I mean, it's only going to be as capable as we allow it to be.
That's kind of the problem for some people. They don't realise just how limited it is. And here's the thing: most people that have made a career in music, in the creative industries, whether it's as a filmmaker or as a musician, most people that make a career don't have a one-hit wonder. They work on their craft, and they have a message. They have a something they want to tell the world, and a way of telling it that they can repeat over and over again. And they might morph it, and they might make different versions of themselves, like David Bowie or Mark Knopfler or any of these people. They'll, Lady Gaga, whatever. They may morph, but it's still essentially their story coming from them, and they can repeat that over and over. Those are the people that have careers. AI doesn't have that to call upon.
Yeah, you can't make a connection with an AI thing, can you? So, yeah,
you can't relate to it sitting in late at night. It's suddenly seeing something at a bus stop, and it goes, "Oh, there's a song there."
Yeah,
it's going to be different. There are going to be changes, but
yeah, Mitchell.
Do I have sound now?
You do, yes.
Okay, so I'm super loud. Okay, let me back that off.
Don't worry.
Okay, so one thing that hasn't really been touched on, I guess, is that it's talked about as if making music is some sort of drudgery, some sort of horrid task that we're desperately trying to eliminate having to do, which I can't relate to at all. To me, the whole thing about it, even more so than playing with synthesizers or noises, is I want to do a song. I want to be able to say, I made up this song and here it is, and I sang it and I played it and here it is. So in that sense, it's useless. And then touching on the argument of like, well, it's going to take work away from all these musicians and no one's going to be able to sell records anymore. Who's selling records? I mean, the amount of people is this horrible scorched earth opinion, so I apologize in front, but who's making money doing music? I mean, outside of commercial, television commercials, that kind of thing.
People touring, but people performing is who? People performing.
Right, but that's kind of an argument as well, because sure, is
But that's
Lady
outside
Gaga making money
AI's
touring?
domain.
Sure. Yeah.
Isn't it?
So, but as far as like mid-level artists and low-level artists, they're not really making money either. They're doing it because they love music, they love creation, they love performing in front of people, and AI can't replace any of that. So, it doesn't seem like it's kind of pointless. It's just another tool.
Absolutely, all very valid points. We're getting very close to the end of the show. This is a conversation I think we could probably do an entire show on, and maybe that's something that we might consider sometime in the new year. I just want to highlight some of the comments that have come in around it. James Dyson, completely agree, finds it completely soulless, which by definition it is. One day says, I Sing the Body Electric, you will all hear a piece of music that moves you, that you love, and then you'll discover it was AI generated. Will you feel hoodwinked and abused, or will you feel intrigued? Yeah, I think that's a
little bit of both,
interesting
I
concept.
would have thought.
Little from column A, little from column B. Scott McCauley Sand says AI will only ever create going on past history, so nothing new will come from it. It will only ever make judgments on theory and previous musical success, which again, it's it has to be trained on something. But eventually, I suppose the technology will develop from that. I don't know. This is great. AI will never make better music or make you a better musician. You need a PSN T-shirt to do that, as demonstrated by Get 70 Music in his video. Absolutely, couldn't agree more.
Hey, can I just jump in with one final comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just another way. I thought this was fascinating. I think everyone should go to YouTube and watch a video that was made by our friend Venus Theory a couple weeks ago. He took a very different approach to AI. He asked an AI to generate music that sounded like his music.
Right.
And then he took the song that was generated and he registered it with a service, and his own music got a copyright strike for sounding too much like the AI generated music that was copying his style. And he made a whole video about it, and it is utterly fascinating and sort of a different approach to look at the problems of AI and what happens when you copy music with AI. So just for people interested in the topic, great video to watch.
Yeah, there's some good stuff going up from various places talking about AI and its sort of perceived impact and what it may or may not do.
Copywriting AI.
Yeah, I mean, it is that kind of thing. The algorithms are essentially machine learned pieces of software code. They're trained on things to pick out stuff, and they're picking out stuff that is, it's weird, isn't it? Sort of
can I make a little it's kind of an observation guess, but on Mitchell's picture there, you see a tiny little bit of a keyboard in the bottom right-hand corner.
Yeah, that's a...
I say Prophet 5.
Go on.
Rev 3?
Rev 4.
Bottom corner?
No, it's Rev 4 on his left-hand side.
It's a 4, is it?
Yeah. On the stand, yeah, it's a Rev 4.
A Rev 4, huh?
Rev 4 P10 on the stand, and you can... Against the wall is my Rev 3 over there.
Yeah. You
can't really see it.
There you go.
Cool.
We've reached the end of the show, and I'm sure we could give that topic a lot more time. Like I said, maybe next year we can do some focused shows, maybe in between the live streams, and do some sort of focused stuff on topics like AI, and maybe get some people into the show that have some sort of hands-on experience with it. Thank you ever so much to Kissing the Machine. Great show as always, and thank you for your kind comments. £10 donation. Thank you, sir, for your Synthspirations video.
Very good one.
If you want to do the same as Sean there, then all you've got to do is make the video, send it to prosynthnetwork@gmail.com. Use a file transfer service, because most videos are going to be bigger than an email will allow. So WeTransfer is perfectly fine and free, but there are others that can be used, and we will feature them on the show as and when we can. So we've got more of those lined up in the queue. So thank you again for that. And one last thing I want to catch up on. So Jason asked, did we do anything pink in the store? And I said, yes, what do you want? And he said, beanies. Unfortunately, pink isn't an option that we can choose from in beanie hats. We might be able to do other head adornments, but not beanies. So I'm really sorry. We can't do pink beanie hats. We don't have control over the colours that are available. So as I said before, if you have anything that you would like a ProSynth Network logo stuck on, disappointed the cartoon PSN were not being modelled by you. I know we need to get some of those.
We'll sort that out.
But if you have something that you think, they haven't got that in the store, and I'd like to wear one of those with a PSN logo on, get in touch. Let us know. We'll see if we can do it for you. So thanks to everyone that's bought merchandise from us. It's been absolutely crazy. I can't believe I didn't do this sooner. And thank you also to Carl and to Cyrus, who, whilst we've been on air, have made purchases from the store. You'll be getting a personal thank you from me very soon. All that remains for me to say is, once again, thank you, Dan, Mitchell, Cherry Audio, for coming on the show, gracing us with your knowledge, your presence, and of course, fantastic plug-in synthesizers at amazing prices. The very best of luck. P10, the second biggest launch that they've had. Second to the GX80. Will we see? We always ask this question. We know we're never going to get told what you're working on next, apart from that little hint that you might be doing something new. That's just popped into your head. Is P10 your 2024 swan song? Are we gonna? Is there going to be a Christmas present under the tree?
There might be a stocking stuffer.
Oh, stocking fillers. Oh, we like stocking fillers.
There might be one more little.
Yeah,
surprise.
there is. Right, I forgot about that. I actually forgot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, folks. Keep your eye on Cherry Audio. Of course, keep your eye on ProSynth Network, because as soon as we get the information, we'll be able to share it with you.
For next year, can I just ask, when are you getting on to making the anaglyph?
No, him.
Showing off her collar. Robert.
Yeah, look, more merch on display. Yeah. There is the ProSynth Network dog collar, which Siri apparently loves.
Yeah, you love this, don't you?
Whoa.
Look at that. So
good girl.
Perfect for the pooch in your life, or in Ken's life even. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Dan and Mitchell, thank you for giving up 2 hours of your very busy days. Well, actually, your Thanksgiving weekend, which is we really appreciate that.
Thanks for having us, as always.
No, it's our pleasure. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Thanksgiving weekend. And we look forward to whatever you might be able to send Santa's way to give to us in our stockings at Christmas. And I'm sure we'll have you back on the show at some point very, very soon. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Kent, for getting here under what are difficult circumstances. We appreciate your efforts, as always. And, of course, thank you to our moderators in the chat, Andrew, and I'm not sure if Andy or Ben turned up, but Andrew's been doing a fine job of making sure that everyone stayed in line. We've got new friends in the chat, people like Trusto101, who comes from the Symptoms of Reality channel. There is a channel you need to go and subscribe to, because they're doing some really cool, very fun and engaging stuff. And they've... through Kent, we've all kind of become very friendly, and they're doing a great challenge at the moment. They're pairing people up randomly to write a song together, wherever they might be in the world, whatever their musical styles or studio setups. They're being paired together. Kent, who did you get in the end?
I got Uncle Chrome.
There you go. So we're going to expect something up to 7 minutes long from Kent and Uncle Chrome in a couple of weeks' time. The pressure is on. But yeah, go and give Symptoms of Reality a look and give them a sub. Also, did we manage to get so many music? Brian Oliver. I know Brian was on like 990 subscribers, and I did ask get
Let's go and deal with that now.
Music. Did we get him over the line? We've got 7 more to go, folks. 7 more subscribers. Can 7 people subscribe to? I'll put the link in the chat.
Yeah, put the link.
I want to get this guy over 1,000 because he deserves it. There we go. So this is Get So Many Music's link is in the chat. Can we get Brian to 1,000 subs in the next 30 seconds? That would be super cool.
I can't click on it.
You have to click in YouTube.
You have to go into YouTube and do that.
There we go. Subscribe. Just subscribe. There we go. Just subscribe.
There we go. Done.
Like, hey!
In the blink of an eye. Brian Oliver, you now have 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget, Andy Synchrotron is doing his live stream tomorrow at 10 a.m. UK time. Then Ranzi's be back at 1 o'clock in the afternoon UK time, but he's from Australia, but he does it sort of to fit in with our midday shenanigans. So go and check out those streams over the weekend. Don't forget, Jason Jervis is doing jamming in Gin Jams with Jackson on Sunday at 10 p.m. And Jason will be a very special guest of ours in a couple of weeks' time.
Yay!
He's coming on the show. Next week, we have a very special guest, but we can't tell you who it is just yet because it all has to do with other things. We have to wait for those things to happen first. but we'll announce it. And the best way to make sure you find out who that is and when that is, well, it's going to be next Friday. Subscribe to the channel. Click that.
Is it Frank Sinatra?
Unfortunately, not. He's a bit smelly.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So come and make sure you come and see that, because it's not only about the guest; it's about something else as well, which I want to tell you, but I can't. So come back and see us next week. We'll have a very special guest, and then we've got Jason Jervis, and lots of stuff coming up.
Is David Bowie announcing Labyrinth 2?
I've got this button back, by the way. Anyway, do that. I can see I've got all my sound effects back. I'm so happy. Mitchell, Dan, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend. If you're in America with your Thanksgiving stuff, if you're just like the rest of us, just have a good couple of days and enjoy it. And we'll see you same time, same place next week. Give us a subscribe. Go and see all those channels we spoke about. Go back and watch, check out the photos from Ollie. Make sure your lady wives are out of the. Click the like. Do all of that stuff. We'll see you soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.